Cavani.
Okay, you can go.
Oh, I can't believe I'm more upset than signing George King. Okay, let's do this. This is gold right here for whoever's watching anyways. All right, welcome back to the RDA. I hope you are doing well. This is your Premier League recap, the 4-3-3 podcast, back with the deadly trio, the deadly front three, whatever you want to call it. I must start the show off by giving a formal apology to my friend Clayton. Banter between friends should never become personal. We are always got in these troubling times, and we should not spit off the bridges that we have with the people that love us, genuinely care about us. And it takes stones to admit that you are wrong sometimes, but you got to admit that you are wrong and let people know that you are sorry. So anyways, Clayton, I am sorry. And now that we've got that out of the way, let's get into the show. It was a crazy Premier League weekend. 4-0. Chelsea beat Crystal Palace by. Everton versus Brighton 4-2. It was a full of goals, full of excitement. Everton looking like one of the best teams in the league, and then a dull ending. Usually this should be the icing on the cake, but instead this was the part that ruined the cake. Manchester City, Leeds. I mean, if you like watching Leeds, 1-1 draw is pretty good. Tactical masterclass from their manager, but from a neutral point of view and from a South African point of view, at least, a lot of these uncultured football fans don't understand the significance of Leeds being back in the Championship, in the Premier League, rather. Sorry. So that's what we'll be talking about in today's show. Please do hit the thumbs up button. We'll start with Chelsea versus Crystal Palace, 4-0 win, resounding victory. Reta, we'll start with you, man. What were your thoughts on that game? Sorry to put you on the spot here, but 4-0 Chelsea. What do you think of them as a team, and what does this result mean for them going forward?
Yeah, no. To be honest, I didn't catch much of the game, but I got a bit of it. And yeah, it seems like it was a good game for Chelsea. It seems like it was a good response from the shocker against West Brom. And from what I heard and from the bit I saw, they were very dominant. Maybe more so in the second half, but they were very dominant throughout the whole game. Crystal Palace couldn't get out. It was their counter style that they usually do. It just didn't work in this game because Chelsea clearly were determined to bounce back and make amends for the past few weeks. And I think the return of Pulisic was also important. I think that's good with. And yeah, look, I back this Chelsea team. I think there's much to come. There's much to come with the Chelsea team. I think it's a bit of a weird time because they've got all these signings in, but at the same time, they didn't have really much of a preseason. So it's like you having to put the team together within the season. And at the same time, there was no time to get over all those injuries. So, yeah, I think it was a decent showing for them. For Crystal Palace, you can excuse the maybe poor showing, if you like. I just think Chelsea was that good. But you can excuse the poor showing because they've been so good throughout the last few weeks. I don't think they've been better than United. They beat United. Yeah. Yes, maybe 4-0 is not acceptable, but it always seems to be the thing with Crystal Palace. It's either a dull game where they keep a clean sheet or they just get battered. So, but it works for them. It works for them, and they stay in the league. And I think they'll have enough in the long run, but maybe a poor game today.
Well, I always look at Crystal Palace with fond memories and that famous season where Liverpool choked the title and lost. I mean, drew 3-3. It felt like a loss, but we can't talk about that anymore because respect to Liverpool, they won the title and now they're the most arrogant fans in world football. Clayton, what do you think of Chelsea? What did you think of the games today, the way both teams set up, and just Chelsea in general? 4-0, quite the win.
Chelsea are just showing a lot of promise. They're showing a lot of what we thought they could do and what they could achieve this season. And it's looking good for them. It's looking very promising. It looks like they have a bright future. The squad's starting to gel well, starting to recover from injuries. I think they're only going to become more and more of a threat as the season goes on. And I'm just excited to watch them as a neutral in their games, of course.
Yeah, and some people saying that Chelsea have actually oversigned in some ways because when you sign so many players, it's hard to establish. Sorry for interrupting you there, but it's hard to establish balance in the team because there's so many players, so many new players trying to find their way into the team, so many of the old players still trying to keep their place in the team. Signing so many players can mess up with the rhythm. And in a way, I feel like if Manchester United had signed 4 or 5 players and then lost 3-1 to Crystal Palace on the first day, oh my God, social media would have been crazy. It would have been a madness. Yeah, but what were you going to say,
Can't sign that many players. Yeah, the life of a United fan. Who played? It was in the centre back pairing. Was it Zuma and Rudiger?
It was Zuma and Silva.
Silva. Zuma actually got a goal today. And
okay, no. Yeah, he said didn't see
Thiago Silva looked a lot better. He looked a lot better today. He had a terrible debut, so it's hard to look worse than that.
Yeah, I mean, look, people talk about Thiago Silva being a fraud, this, that, and the other. Look, at the end of the day, he is the kind of player I wouldn't want at Manchester United because of his age, because I think there's no future. Yeah. But for what Chelsea are building, I think he adds so much experience to that team, right? A young team that's trying to turn into a team that's winning trophies. Obviously, Chelsea don't mess about. If you don't win a Premier League within the first 3 seasons, you're out to Chelsea pretty much. So I think Thiago Silva definitely does help them. He definitely does have pedigree. And anyone who doesn't respect Thiago Silva as a footballer, wake up. Turn. I don't even know what to say. Turn your football juices on. Go back and watch some of the great matches that Thiago Silva was involved in. He's a fantastic defender, man.
Yeah. Born leader.
I'm having connection.
It is very unorthodox because I don't think we've ever seen like this. We've seen people sign a huge amount of players, but what is it, like 8 players at the same time or so, and they're all first team? It is very unorthodox. So I guess we'll see how it works with Frank Lampard. And the fact Frank Lampard is a new manager as well, it brings it. You just wonder if he can do it, if he can manage all those players. So it'll be an interesting journey to see with Chelsea, but good showing today.
Look, I think, just before we move on, I think with Chelsea, it is unfortunate that people, like I always say, the intellectual football fan is not in fashion nowadays. People take things out of context. Chelsea didn't spend money last summer. So effectively what you have is them making up for a window. Most clubs would just write that window off, but not Chelsea. Chelsea don't mess about. I think this window is a reflection of what they would have done if they didn't have a transfer ban. People are like, where does Chelsea get all this money from? Financial fair play is down the drain. Football's gone. It's like, hang on a minute. These guys had money from last summer. They wouldn't have done this in a normal transfer window. Chelsea
you think so?
7 to 9 players. I don't think so. I think if Chelsea could have signed players last season, they would have signed 3, and then they would have signed 3 more to strengthen this summer. I don't think they would have gone on 2 massive spending sprees. Correct me if I'm wrong. Chelsea have never signed 7 players in one window and then signed 7 more in the next window. They don't do that.
Yeah.
They haven't. But I feel like the amount of signings they made is significant of the gap to the top teams. I feel like they had to make that many signings.
It is. But I don't. Yes, but I think people are taking it out of context. I think they wouldn't have signed 7 players last season and 7 players this season. They would have signed maybe 4 or 5 players last season, and then based on where they finished and the assessment of the team, they would have bought more players this season and sold some. So people talk about Chelsea like they're playing one big game of FIFA. In FIFA, you don't get financial bans, brother. So it is what it is with Chelsea. And for all the people saying we need to sign. I've heard United fans comparing us to Chelsea and saying, look at Chelsea, big club mentality. It's like, first of all, look, I'm not defending the Glazers or anything, but our wage structure is very different to Chelsea's to a point where we can't just bring in 7 new signings and expect that to go well. You know what I mean? Like negotiating the wages is going to be very difficult, first of all. And second of all, who wants to come, who are these 7 players that want to come to Manchester United? Third of all, how are we moving players out of the club? Because we can't just have a massive squad and add 7 new people and then not move people on, right? And that's a problem with Manchester United. It is 100% the board's fault. They have 100% put themselves in this situation. But I'm just saying, rationally speaking, the rebuild process at Manchester United is going to take much longer than it has at Chelsea. Chelsea in a different situation than us, and we finished above them. So, people comparing us to Chelsea is just a bit weird for me, based off one window. You know what I mean? There's no context. Context is completely gone out the window. Yeah. But anyway, this is not the show for.
Before we move on, though, where do you guys put Chelsea in the title race? Or am I insane to even say such a statement?
Well, Clayton, what do you think, first of all, before I go?
I don't think they're quite there just yet. Looks like they can be, but I don't think they're there yet. So I'm still sticking with my old prediction. I still think they're going to finish 3rd. I don't think anything's changed in my mind yet. They've had a slow start, but it looks like they're starting to get better. So I still think they're going to finish high up the table. Just I don't think they're going to be in that race for too long with Liverpool showing the dominance that they are this season.
Yeah. I kind of like that. Not being too emotional, being calm, being rational, looking at it from what it is. It is one game at the end of the day. I think with Chelsea, they have the potential to definitely push for the title. I'm not going to write them off. You know, you don't just make 7 signings and not push for a title with the club that traditionally does that and succeeds at it. But I still have to say, like, I don't really know how these players will synergize over the course of the season, right? Like, I can tell you beyond reasonable doubt that Liverpool are in a really good place at the moment. If something happens to Salah, if something happens to Mane, Jovic comes in. They have a squad now to where like they don't need their best 11 to be fit 100% of the time. They've actually strengthened, and they're going to be a much worse team than they were last season. Hopefully, the fan base won't be worse than it was last season. But anyways, Manchester City are still Manchester City for me. They're a team that
Marco,
can play really well.
before we move on, something did actually happen. He did test positive for COVID-19. If you guys didn't see that news, so he is actually going to be out on the next Liverpool game.
Yeah, but they've got Jovic, you know. Yeah, they've got Jovic, and I think
Jota.
That is Jota. Sorry,
J.
my bad. Jota. Okay, I keep getting the names mixed up. Sorry. Jota is the signing.
Yeah. Look.
Jota for Liverpool was a fantastic signing because if something happens to Salah or Mane, which it has, you've got someone to come in, and they're going to be a much stronger team than they were last season. City are City, as usual. I just don't see how Chelsea just push those two teams out like sideways and get the title. You know, I just don't see that happening. I see them winning an FA Cup, maybe a Carabao Cup, maybe pushing further in the Champions League, but I think it's going to be a 3-year project with Chelsea. I don't think, unfortunately.
Or 3 years including the last year, you mean?
Yeah, including the last season.
Yeah, no, I guess
I think
I predicted them to win the league, which maybe was a bit ambitious. Look, I just feel like it's 4 games, you know? It's 4 games. Yeah. There's a lot of circumstances around it. And I'm expecting a bounce. Maybe there's not much evidence in it because you don't really know what's going to happen. But I do think the players will come. The fitness will come back. And when I look at all the players they signed, they don't really have bad injury records, you know? Maybe Pulisic, but the rest of them, I don't think they have horrible injury records. I'm expecting a bounce. And I'm expecting them to get very close because I think they are really good. They're really good signings they made. And maybe not first. I think the problem might be Liverpool might be too far ahead. I don't know. But at the end of the day, it is just 4 games.
Yeah, I think the Liverpool being far ahead is not. It's not really about the depth and quality. I think Chelsea definitely do have the depth and quality to push for a title. I think the reason why I put Liverpool far ahead of them is because I just haven't seen how those players synergize at the moment. Like you said, it's only 4 games. I definitely do think they will go on a bounce. I definitely do agree with that. But I don't know if that will necessarily just result in them winning the title. So we'll just have to wait and see. I obviously respect your prediction, and I can't argue against it because I think Chelsea are definitely, if anyone is going to challenge Liverpool, I think it is Chelsea. Let me just put it that way. But I think Liverpool is still in a good place. They've still got a system of players that works. The players will be consistent. Nobody's going to have a massive drop off, I don't think, you know, but you never know. I just don't see how Chelsea just catch up without having a really good run, or like a really good run. If they go in a 3-month run of just not losing games, then you've got to look at Chelsea and say, hang on a minute, you know, what's going on here? But with Liverpool, you know how
and they've done it before, though. Not done it before.
They've done it before. Yeah, but the thing is with Liverpool, and the reason why Liverpool is such a thorn in the side of everyone else is because we know, come Carabao Cup, come FA Cup, if things start to hit the fan, they will not play their strongest team. They will focus everything on the league.
I mean, they're already out.
Yeah. And they're already out of the Carabao Cup anyways. Yeah, so that's the thing with Liverpool. But anyways, moving on to one of the best teams in the league at the moment, undoubtedly. Everton beating Brighton 4-0. Actually 4-2, pardon me, 4-2. What did you guys think of that game? And Clay, we'll start with you. What did you think of the game? Do you think Everton completely outplayed Brighton, or do you think there was a bit of a game there that Brighton gave them?
At first, I definitely thought Brighton were giving them a big run for their money. It took them a while to get into the group for that game, I think. Even though Calvert-Lewin got an early goal, I still think Brighton were attacking while they were still defending, while shifting the ball well.
Yeah.
Graham Potter has really structured this Brighton side into a force. But Everton just started clicking. James Rodriguez came into his own, and he just put the game away. Just scored a brace, got an assist, and it was just done. He just put the game to bed. Brighton tried their hardest, but they couldn't quite get the result against the mighty Evertonians.
The mighty Evertonians. Toffees.
Funny
Is the nickname, isn't it?
I think so. Yeah.
I think so.
Up the Toffees.
I'm an uncultured Premier League fan, apparently. Retta, what did you think of the game, man?
Yeah, no. I think what we saw today is that coaching can only get you so far, because I think we saw two teams that play really nice football, really well coached teams, but Everton just has the quality now, and Brighton don't have that, and because of that, every time Brighton attacked, it just looked like they were toothless. They don't have a talisman. Maybe they have good enough players against the rest of the league, the minnows of the league, and maybe they'll be good enough to survive in the division. But I don't think it's good enough to trouble the Uniteds of this world, even Everton. So I think, it sucks, because they hit the post like 5 times against United. I mean, I know one can say that's unlucky, but 5 times, come on. I think you'd say if they're a talisman, a proper striker, you have to bag at least one of those. So it's unfortunate there. And in terms of Everton, they're looking brilliant. Every time they touch the ball, the movement is great, the counter's great. They just seem to understand each other. Rodriguez, geez, my life, he's been phenomenal. And I think it was a good signing, because if you think about it, he's played under Ancelotti's system at Real Madrid, at Bayern, so it makes sense he's come in and just understood what to do, because he's played under the system so many times. So they're looking amazing. At the same time, Calvin Lewin, maybe I'm a bit of a skeptic. I don't know how long he can carry on with this run. I do have a bit of doubt, but looking at the evidence right now, he's looking unbelievable.
Yeah, Calvin Lewin getting the 1 goal there, James Rodriguez getting the brace. And is it Mina? I don't know how to pronounce this guy's name, apparently. Mina scored in the 4th goal for Everton. Well, it was actually the 2nd goal in the game, but 4th in the order that I did it. I just want to say there, this has nothing to do with the Everton and Brighton game, by the way. But with regards to Brighton hitting the post 5 times, can I just say, it's one of those polarizing opinions in football, but hitting the post isn't getting a shot on target. It's not like a slight deflection and the ball nearly went in, or you shot the ball and the wind blew it away, or you know what I mean. It's hitting the post. It doesn't count as a shot on target. So it's like in FIFA, if you're hitting the post 100 times in one game, you're doing something wrong, most likely than not. You can't just blame scripting. This is real life. So at least in FIFA you have the scripting excuse. I don't know what the excuse was in real life. And you can't be hitting the post 5 times and then looking at the rest of the world like, oh, we deserve to win. It's football. You don't get what you deserve, you get what you take at the end of the day.
I guess it's down to the ownership and the management's ambition, because you can see that Graham Potter's a really good manager, and if you're waiting for a manager, if you're analyzing who's the manager we're going to pay back to take this team to the next stage, I think they found that manager. So I think they need to cough up now, because I do not think they have good enough players to move up the table. They're good enough to survive, but not move up the table.
I mean, this is one of Everton's best starts in top-flight football, if I'm not mistaken. 4 games on the bounce, looking like a prime Barcelona out here, fam. Just doing the bits, the absolute bits. I will put you guys on the spot in a moment with regards to Everton and where they'll finish in the table. But I think a more interesting point is, you mentioned there Carlo Ancelotti being the type of manager that, you don't just pick up Carlo Ancelotti to finish mid-table. There's obviously an ambition from Everton. Do you think there is, and Rita will start with you, obviously, do you think there's a massive, massive similarity? Dare I make this comparison, because Spurs fans will get upset. A massive similarity between Everton and Spurs, right? Like 2 teams that aren't traditionally always in the top 6 throughout their history. 2 teams that have always been mid-table, and then they've had good seasons and crept in and then fallen out. And now they've both got 2 managers who you could argue were at least in the top 5 in their prime. Ancelotti was a top 5 manager at some point in the world, and Jose Mourinho is obviously one of the greatest managers that football has at the moment. What do you think of the similarities between these 2 teams? I mean, budget as well.
Yeah, I think you can see they want to move up. And Everton, you can say they haven't been trying actually, because they've been getting people like Koeman who are not really proven. I know he's at Barca now, so that's a step up.
Yeah.
But I feel like maybe into the manager profile, this is a step up. And they're saying, okay, now we need to stop playing around and get the right person for this job. The person who can take us to the next step. And I think, it's tough on Poch. but Mourinho is proven. So in that sense, you can say it's similar. At the same time, you see that, and again, tough and Poch, but you can see that with these managers, both these clubs are somehow now willing to spend. I mean, Daniel Levy spending, you never thought you'd see that. And Everton have spent really well. So yeah, they're very similar, I guess.
I mean, I think the market has something to do with that, because you look at the signings they've made, and Clayton, we'll get to your thoughts in a bit, but you look at the signings they've made, right? James Rodriguez, look, whatever you think of him, he is obviously a very talented footballer. He didn't really work out at Bayern. He didn't really work out at Real Madrid. So it's quite obvious that Real Madrid and Bayern Munich have no long-term ambition of keeping James Rodriguez at the club, right? And then you've got this club, this Premier League club that can't really afford big money spending. So you're kind of going to give him on the cheap in a COVID market. I'm not saying... I don't want to attribute it completely to luck, because I think Everton and Spurs are well-run football clubs considering the circumstances. But I mean, you look at Bale as well. It's pretty obvious that Real Madrid don't want Bale. The parallels between these two teams is amazing, because you got two players here who haven't worked out at Real Madrid as well as everybody thought they would. They're both injury prone. One likes golf. One actually likes playing football. They're two players that United fans probably wouldn't have taken. But if they go to Everton or they go to any other mid-table club or any other club that's pushing for top four, we're like, actually, that's a really good signing. And we start to look at our own club and like, what the hell are our owners doing, So I think there's so many similarities. Just quickly, Rita, who do you think is in a better position to capitalize and be that big club, be that next top four sort of stable club between Everton and Spurs? Most people would go with Spurs, but at the moment, Everton are looking on fire.
That's a hard question to answer.
I think
just to go back on just to go back on the thing you said, I think with Decore and Alan Hazell, because I think Napoli have been struggling with money, so COVID played a very big part there. And Decore is from what? Watford, right?
Yeah, Watford.
Yeah, they got relegated plus COVID. So I feel like as much as we don't want to put it in a positive light, the pandemic did really work in Everton's favor.
It went very well, though. You have to admit, any big club doing business like that should be praised.
I mean,
relegation.
Man City with Nathan Ake swooped in. Yeah.
But I think I agree with you, Marcus. I'm a bit skeptic about Everton, to be honest. As much as it's not against the popular opinion, I wonder how long they can carry on this run. I see a lot of similarities to Leicester last season, to be honest. So, I think Mourinho, proven manager. I'm seeing really good signings. And I think they just have more of the stature, more of the players to do it. So I think Spurs.
And I mean, if you want to be pragmatic about it and look at the evidence and be as objective as possible, I think you've got to look at Spurs and say they've made a Champions League final. They've consistently made top four competitive, right? And they're a team that has consistently looked like breaking through. Everton have been very inconsistent because even under David Moyes, they had wonder seasons, but it was always like, it's not enough. And will they go the extra mile next summer? No, they never do. And for the first time, they are going in the right direction, but it's a risk. Everybody needs to remember that James Rodriguez is a risk. He could get injured at any moment, and Everton are back to the team they were before. It's a risk, and it's a risk that could pay off. It looks like it's paying off. But Clayton, what do you think are the parallels between these two teams before we move on?
Yeah, I could definitely see the parallels, but I can also see that they'll never meet, and I think that is very poetic. We're actually using the word parallels. That they're very much opposite managers. One likes attacking, attractive football. The other one likes the defensive style. That'll just win a game no matter what. Both are born winners. They've proved it throughout their club history. They've won everywhere they've gone. They're just proven talent. So it's very hard not to see the positives and parallels between the two. Both manage
Chelsea.
No point.
Yeah, if you're fishing.
And both are really pushing to win something this season, to say the least.
Yeah.
I think Everton more want to win over a bit more fans. They want to prove themselves in the Prem. They want to assert themselves as an actual club that's going to be dominant now. They're saying this is our time, and it's very much looking at this is going to happen. But the one positive is Ancelotti knows that James could get injured at any point. He is resting this man game in, game out. He's never played a full 90. He took him off before the 70th minute of this game. He's making 100% sure he keeps his star man fit, and he's making sure Everton keep on grinding out those wins.
I like that. I like that. You know, it's that lack of naivety. Like, you know, there's nothing more annoying than a manager who runs a player into the ground and you know this guy's going to get injured. You're just there, you know, sort of crossing your fingers like, why are you keeping him on when we're 4-2 up? Take him off. What were we going to say there?
I was going to say, do you guys think they'll make top 4 or top 5? And if they do, what will they do? What's different between them and Leicester last season?
Yeah, well, I was going to ask you the same question, but you know, since I'm no longer the host, I think I think if there is a team that's going to make top 4, that is not the top 4 that was the way it was last season, I think it will be Everton. I really do, and I know that goes against everything I've just said because I think long term Spurs have the recipe to build and become a better club. They're in the Europa League; they could win that, but at the moment, I think if James Rodriguez can stay fit, if Calvert-Lewin can stay in form, I think Everton have got a good thing going. I think the difference between Leicester and Everton is that I think Leicester, after winning the Premier League title, can't believe I'm even saying that, but Leicester after winning the Premier League
last
title,
season.
Yeah, no, I know. I'll touch on that. After winning the Premier League title, they went through a bit of a dry period, right? And then last season, they had this amazing run where they were in third. They were the only team that was pushing Man City. Chelsea was losing 1 game every 3, I think it was, the crazy stat. Manchester United, every time Chelsea left the door open, we just couldn't capitalize. It was an awful time.
Yeah.
And Leicester City was just kind of found this dominant form. And then for some reason, they just dropped off a cliff.
Southampton.
Yeah. And then they just dropped off a cliff for some reason. So I think the difference between Leicester and Everton, I don't really know what it is. I think Everton are hungrier. I think Everton will want it more. I think this Everton team will definitely feed off the good energy. I think it's more of a fairy tale for them, and that works in their favor. I think nobody's really rating them, and nobody's really putting them under pressure, so that also works in their favor. I think with Leicester, there's a lot of people under the microscope. James Maddison, a player who's been linked to clubs like Manchester United, he's kind of gone under the radar, and he'll want to prove himself. There's just a lot of, I don't know. There's almost like a cloud of uncertainty around Leicester at the moment. What are Leicester? Are they a top 4 club? Are they a top 6 club? Are they a top 8 club? Are they a club that's going to sometimes finish in the top 3? Are they a club that gets into the top 3 and then bottles it every season? You know, what are they? Or are they just that club that won a Premier League and we never heard from them again? I don't know what Leicester is. At least with Everton, I can say they're a club on the brink of becoming a top 4 side. So I don't know. What do you think, Clay?
Well, why aren't we looking at Leicester the same way we're looking at Everton this season? They just beat City 5-2, was it? They're in hot form. They're showing intent this season again. They're starting just as strong as last season. They're going even further this season by the looks of things.
I guess so, but why will Everton be able to finish the job off and Leicester couldn't?
No, that's tough.
There's no
you
evidence.
can't really say that they finished up the job, yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll see long term what happens. But this is a competitive season, to say the least. It's going to be a very good season, and we're going to see a lot of changes.
Yeah, the reason why I don't judge Everton the same as Leicester is because Everton haven't been in the top 4 for a long, long time. Everton are a team that's hungry and looking to break into the top 4. Leicester are a team that have been in the top 4 and have just dropped out, finished there sometimes, dropped out. And they're this team that's just yo-yoing between things. And I think Leicester are definitely an ambitious club, but they've got the Europa League as well to think about. They'll definitely want to have a go in the FA Cup and the Carabao Cup. And I think for Everton, the priority would just be get into Europe. I think that's what the board was saying to Ancelotti, get into Europe. And I think that works in their favor. I really do. I think with Leicester, they're just a bit under the microscope. That's the only reason I don't judge them differently. But based on the evidence, you have to say Leicester is probably going to be the more consistent because you can't go all 4 games and ignore the last 8 years that Everton haven't really pushed.
I think there's promise, but I just wonder. I feel like there's too many sensitive positions because we're all talking about Rodriguez, but what happens when Calvert-Lewin gets injured? There's too many variables. I think the squad is deep. I just don't know if the squad's good enough. And I feel like we're going to see some players run out of steam and injuries are going to be a problem. And I just don't think they can be consistent like they're playing right now throughout the whole season. But we'll see.
Some people say the same against about Leicester, you know, because they've sold a lot of their started quality. One of them, a Fridge, who plays for Manchester United now, by the way.
I think lockdown played a part, but I think we saw that Leicester last season. I mean, Maddison was a very big part, but then he just died out. And
exactly.
I feel like,
and that's my fear with Leicester. It will happen again. So, Yeah, I think that will happen again. And I think the only reason that won't happen at Everton, right? Besides, if injury happens, whatever, it is what it is. But the only reason that won't happen at Everton, if James Rodriguez and the rest of the team, the main talent stays fit, I think is because, and I'm starting to sound like a passion legend, but I think it's just because they're hungrier. They have more to play for than Leicester. I think Leicester, a lot of the Leicester players they're obviously professional footballers and they want to win, but subconsciously I think they'll be kind of okay. Like this has happened before. We'll just finish fifth again, or we'll just finish sixth again. It's okay. It's kind of the same mentality problem that I think exists in Spurs at the moment, funny enough, with some of the Spurs players. After making the Champions League final, how gutted they were, I think the tank is empty, and it's a weird thing. You can want to get up for games, you can want to win, but sometimes that's not enough. When your heart has been broken so many times and you're kind of in the same cycle, sometimes you just need a fresh start as a player. And I think a lot of players need that at Spurs. I don't think a lot of players need that at Everton. I think a lot of players at Everton are just hungry, and that's the difference. But we'll see. Maybe the 4-game run is just a fluke. But moving on to the final game, the final talking point, Leeds United versus Manchester City. I'm very interested to hear your two's opinions, and we'll start with Clay this time. First of all, what were your thoughts on the game? But more importantly, what are your thoughts on Leeds United as a team?
It was a very end-to-end game, to say the least. Both teams attacking non-stop, both teams down each other's throats. It just looked like nobody could finish at the end. And it was just kind of a disappointing end for it to be a 1-1 draw, sadly. But yeah, the Sterling he looked good. He started the game so well. That strike was fantastic. You never pick Sterling out of that squad to score a goal like that. He rarely scores beautiful goals like that. It's always that tap-in, and even when he gets those tap-ins, he skies them sometimes. So you never know what you're going to get with Sterling, and that's what we saw tonight. We saw the player he can be, and then the player he normally is. And
under pressure.
Under pressure, it just feels like Sterling can't perform sometimes. When he's free to do whatever he wants, and he's calm, he pulls off some magic strike, and they go up 1-0. And then just Leeds push so hard. Yeah, definitely. Leeds just looked like a very promising team. We don't have to talk about City in the Champions League. That's just,
we dare not go there. Yeah, we dare not. Those are all fair points, man. Rita, what were your thoughts on the game, man?
Yeah, no. I said these Oaks will get relegated, so I'm gonna have big on my face because these guys play football. These guys play proper football, and they have the spine. I feel like sometimes with these teams, they'll play like flashy, nice passes, but then at the back they just fall apart. Not these guys. You can see they're organized, back to front, they press, and I think they're a really good team. But to be honest, in the first half, I didn't really see that. I feel like City really dominated in the first half, and I don't know why that is. I don't know if they were starstruck or something. I don't know. Maybe City just had that much of a good game plan, but I feel like City really control the midfield, they control the game. They didn't move the ball too fast, and it just seemed like it was nullifying Leeds. And when they were analysing at halftime on the Premier League or on DSTV, they showed that Phillips was very isolated in the midfield. It was so weird. I don't know why that was happening. So I felt like City should have capitalised more on that, but they didn't. And when they came right back, you saw why Marcelo Bielsa was such a good manager, because they looked like a completely different team, and they were going at City. And I was seeing City's frailties. It seemed like they couldn't hold the ball anymore. It seemed like they were always tracking back in defense, and they just looked not to be on it. And they conceded. Yeah. Great that Rodrigo. What is his name again? Rodrigo. Oh, I forgot his name. Rodrigo scored. It's great he scored his first goal, right?
Yeah, his first goal.
Yeah, and to be honest, I think City got. I don't want to say lucky. One can say it's admirable that they were able to stay in the game, but I feel like they were under the caution in the second half. And you wonder, it looks all great for Leeds. It looks like they're going to be a proper team this season in division. But you just wonder about Man City. Wonder what's going on, what's next. I know it's only 4 games, but you just wonder.
Well, I wish Shoni was here to tell us, because we all know he's jacking off to a poster of Raheem Sterling in his room right now, wondering what went wrong. But actually, to be fair, he's probably doing the opposite with Rodrigo and Leeds, because he seems to like Leeds as well. I don't know. Man City. What do we think of Man City? I'll go first. Man City. Bold prediction. I think Pep Guardiola will either leave Man City or be out of a job at Man City at the end of this season, especially if he doesn't win the Champions League. He came out recently and said that and I guess this is the perfectionist in Pep speaking. He said he needs to earn his spot at Manchester City or something like that by winning the Champions League. And look, I think this guy, he doesn't just want to win leagues. If there's one thing we know about Pep Guardiola, he doesn't just want to sit and win the same thing. He wants to move on to new challenges. I know there's all the passion stuff about him potentially settling down and trying to replicate the Fergie thing and the Wenger thing and the Klopp thing by staying at one club long term. And I think if his hunger to win the Champions League is that strong with another team other than Barcelona, yeah, why not? I don't understand why you would fire someone like that. But the amount of money this guy's burned through. Yes, he won 2 back-to-back Premier League titles, which I think is amazing, by the way. Yes, he won, 7 trophies in the space of 2 seasons. But does City just want to be that club that wins a Premier League title every 3 seasons with the same manager, or do they want to win a Champions League? And from the amount of money they're spending, it looks like they want to win a Champions League. And I don't know if Pep's the guy for that, man. So, Okay, what do you think of man?
Imagine that statement.
Yeah, it'd be a ridiculous statement. But I wouldn't be surprised. It feels like Pep hasn't been himself for the past 2 seasons. It doesn't feel like City have had the dominance that we're used to. It feels like they're... Yeah, that's saying something, though. That's really saying something about what he did to with Man City. You had a 100-point season. You won a quadruple. And he's completely dying off to Liverpool's side. And it looks like this season he's going to fall even further down that rabbit hole. It just looks like he's going to get a lower points tally than the last season at this rate. They have not looked convincing. They started the season really well, and then the last 2 games, they've just not shown any passion. They've not shown any grit to carry on and push forward. They've not shown what they normally are made of. They've not shown that 100-point season again. They've not shown that winning mentality again. It just feels like they're a bit lost right now. And I do think that could be down to the Champions League and their endeavours there and just shifting focus away from the Premier League. Yeah. But it just feels like it hasn't worked yet as well. Mm-hmm. So maybe Pep isn't the right man for the job, but he's definitely built a legacy with this Man City side, and congratulations to everything there. And maybe it's best for him to move on and see if he can go in the Champions League.
Well, Reto, we'll get to you in a bit, but I think I know why that is. And me and Reto have argued about this for years and years and years and years. It's something I think is a common theme amongst all top managers, whether you're talking about Jose Mourinho. Jurgen Klopp is a controversial example because he just won a Premier League title, but I'm going to throw him in there as well. Whether you're talking about Pep Guardiola, whether you talk even Sir Alex Ferguson, actually, I think he applies. I think there is a difficulty. It's extremely difficult, number one, to win trophies at the highest level, but to do it over and over and over again and keep that hunger and desire in your team is obviously a very difficult thing. And what makes it even harder for Pep Guardiola's teams, in my opinion, it's not just that these players are struggling to stay hungry. It's not that these players are struggling, having subconscious issues with dealing with the Champions League. But on top of that, they're playing a playing style week in, week out that demands absolute intensity. And even when they lose, their manager is so stubborn and relentless in his pursuit of whatever he's pursuing that it's this playing style and you won't change it. And if you want proof of this, look at Mourinho at Chelsea. Stubborn. We are not playing any other way. Park the bus football. Hazard, I tell you what, I know you're one of the best wingers in the world, but get back and defend. Otherwise, get out of my team. And Hazard was like, oh, fuck this. I'm just going to down tools, man. And Pedro was also like, fuck this. I'm just going to down tools. Mourinho's in 14th in the very next season and sacked at Chelsea. It's not that simple. That's a watered-down version of what actually happened. But if you look at all these managers, even Fergie famously said you have to keep hunger within the team. Number one, you have to buy to sell. So you have to sell players in order to bring new players in anyways. So you have to get rid of someone in your team in order to improve. But number two, you need to get rid of the players that just aren't working anymore. Like Sterling, I'm sorry. I rate you as a baller. I do. I really do. But would you rather not have a left winger who finishes under pressure at least half the time? Imagine if you had a left winger who doesn't miss the sitter against Olympique Lyon and you're in a Champions League semi-final instead of sat there for the next 3 weeks going, what went wrong, And what is Sterling planning to do to fix his issues? You know what I mean? Like, there's just some things that you cannot fix by staying at the club. It's just not realistic. Sometimes you have to move on, and I think that's the problem with Pep. Bayern Munich, he just couldn't do it in the Champions League, and they wouldn't let him. they wouldn't back him beyond what they already did. They wouldn't give him more players, more money, and allow him to diversify the playing style to what he wanted to. So he was like, okay, I don't know what you guys want from me. I'm leaving, even though I won the Bundesliga so many times. It's the same thing with these teams, man. You can't play such a high intensity playing style and expect to win trophies every single season without bringing in new players who are hungry to, number one, learn under the new manager, learn with their new teammates, have a smile on their face, graft hard, even when things aren't going well, even when you're 3-0 down, still run their socks off. And on top of the fact, and I'm sorry, I'm not gonna make this any longer, but on top of all of that, I think the modern footballer is not the same as the old footballer. A lot of footballers nowadays are a lot more sensitive. They require a different amount of attention. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer alluded to this. Like, you have to treat footballers differently, and I'm not saying it's a snowflake culture or anything like that. It's just different. It's just different. And I don't know if managers like Mourinho, Pep, and Klopp is actually a very good man manager, to be fair. But Mourinho and Pep specifically, for lack of a better example, I don't know if if they're willing to change their ways enough in order to adapt to the younger player. Like, somebody needs to go around Sterling and fix this problem that he has, because he obviously has a problem. He's a talented footballer and he's great, but he obviously has a problem with finishing. And yelling at him and during tantrums on the touchline is not going to help that. It's obviously going to demotivate him more. So there must be another way, like hold your arm around him and say, hey, mate, listen, we need to fix this, So I just don't think Pep and Mourinho have that. They seem to be very, I don't know if hard is the right word. They seem to be very hard, perfectionist mindset, and I don't know if that works for all players. But Rita, what do you think?
It's weird. In a way, it's like Sterling is regressing, because it was always like there's this finishing thing, and there's like it was fixed, but now we're going back to like he can't finish. So I think I agree with you here. I think it's mentally draining, and I think we all love this modern football style that focuses on the nuances of the style and exactly how you play it, but it is mentally draining. And I think we've seen many examples. We saw Klopp at Dortmund. Eventually, it just fell apart. We saw Poch at Tottenham. Eventually, it's hard to maintain it.
Just falls apart, yeah.
And I don't know if this is a controversial example, but you can kind of say Madrid under Zidane wasn't like that. The style wasn't that intense. It was a bit tempestuous. Sometimes it's very intense, sometimes it's not. So I don't know. Maybe that's why they were able to be so consistent. Obviously, on top of that those brilliant players. So we can't forget that.
Yeah.
But it is a weird one. It is a weird one, because it does seem like that magic is gone. It does seem like that spark that they had is just not there anymore. And sometimes it looks like they're trying to force it when it didn't look like that before. And on top of that, I think you're right into the whole renewing players thing. As much as it's hard to bring a lot of players because it costs money, but I think you're right about that. Yeah.
If you sell Morris, that's a lot of money.
Yeah. Sell to buy. I think it's the only way to do it. It's a bit hard because you feel like I brought in this asset, they really want to lose him. So, but I think that's what you have to do. And I feel like it's worse at Man City because I feel like there's some key players that didn't replace for some time. Now we have Diaz. Hopefully they'll replace Company, but I feel like for some time they didn't do that. And for the life of me, maybe tell me if I'm wrong, I just don't think Foden is, what's his name again, is it David Silva? No way is he David Silva.
Johnny's twitching in his chair right now, wherever he is, because he's going in on Foden, by the way. But he's not David Silva, obviously.
I mean, how can one of your best players, your most influential players, just walk out the door and you think that this kid who's talented and you can see this growth in him is just going to replace him and it's going to have the same impact? I don't see how that works. So you can't do that and expect to be playing at the same level. So I think you're right. I worry a bit because I never saw this coming. I love Pep and I never saw this coming. But I worry how bad this could be for them. Hopefully, they can bounce back. Yeah.
But this is what I keep saying, right? Like, a lot of people don't want to hear this, right? Because as soon as you talk about Fergie, as soon as you talk about Pep, as soon as you talk about Mourinho, as soon as you talk about Klopp, you get attacked. People get defensive, right? And I'm not saying these guys aren't great managers. I'm not saying these guys don't have the potential to bring out the best in players, right? But it's almost like football fans seem to think that it's a magic wand. Like, I'm just going to come to this team and make them better than they already are. I'm going to make this guy into a world-class striker. I'm going to make this guy into a very good right winger from average. And it's like, I don't think that actually happens. And if it does, it doesn't happen as often as people think it does. I don't think a manager can come in and turn a completely bang average player with not that much pace, not that much agility, into this amazingly agile and quick striker. I don't think it works like that. I think you can definitely improve a player's game in terms of their decision making and how they integrate their abilities and take full advantage of it. Example, Virgil van Dijk at Liverpool, right? I don't think Klopp solely, one man, turned him into a world-class centre-back. I think the combination of the defensive pairing with Trent, Robertson next to him, as well as the guy Gomez next to him, first of all, that defense complements each other very well. Second of all, the qualities that Virgil van Dijk has fit perfectly with the system they play. So obviously now he looks like a world-class defender. But was he not a really good defender at Southampton anyways? Some people seem to think he was bang average, and I'm like, no, that's not the case. You just didn't see these qualities in him because he wasn't playing in a system that brought the best out of him. And yes, sometimes, on rare occasions, there is a genuinely average player who does become good under a manager because of what they learn. But I think we're seeing now at City, you can only do that so much. Sterling can only grow so much. He has a ceiling. Bernardo Silva can only grow so much. He has a ceiling. Foden can only grow so much. He has a ceiling. Eventually, you need to rely on your recruitment, your coaching staff, and the evolution of your tactics. And there's so many factors that go into a successful team. And I don't think people want to accept that, especially with Pep. And I think they're going to see it. And I think to call Pep a fraud is wrong. To say Pep is a fraud because he spent £1 billion and he didn't do anything at City is wrong. He retained the Premier League. You show me a club that's retained the Premier League besides Fergie's teams, and I'll wait. You can't call him fraud. But you can say that it's bloody hard. It's bloody hard to get the best out of a team and do it season after season after season after season. Even when they go off form, be like, hey, it's okay. Get back into form. I'll wait for you. It's difficult.
Yeah. It also just feels like you're just trying to get the best out of a team that's already achieved the best. It's hard to have ambition when they've just already been at the top, when they know that they are the top, when they know it's just your confidence is already sky high. You can't exactly bring that up. You can't boost it. You can't say go out there, show them what you got, show them why you should have been consideration for Player of the Year, and then they're just all nominated for it, and one of them ends up winning it, and stuff like that. Just you can just see it in players. It just feels like they fell off a little bit because of that stuff.
100%. And there's the obvious problem of egos colliding. I mean, Leroy Sané, fantastic talent, left Manchester City because he wanted game time. You left the team that retained the Premier League title, and you're literally learning under one of the best managers of all time because you want more game time. There's that obvious problem.
That's what Clay's saying. I think he's right, because I feel like at the same time, it's difficult to then switch it on, because yes, we've achieved everything in the Premier League, and it's hard to get back to that level of confidence and play like we're extremely hungry. You can't just say, okay, we're not going to do it here, but when we get to the Champions League, now we're on. It doesn't work like that. So it's a bit difficult to just switch it on. Yeah,
exactly. The players have to want it as well, and you have to try and make the players want it, and you can only do that so much, which is exactly my point. My famous line: no manager has a magic wand. Eventually, the other, you need help from outside, from external factors to work in your favor. It doesn't help that Liverpool are as good as they are at the moment, and all they focus on is the Premier League. That doesn't help City's case either. It doesn't help that Bayern Munich look as good a team as I probably have seen in a long, long time since some of the best Barcelona teams as well. So you have that. It doesn't help that Lyon were highly motivated in that game and were very disciplined, and to their credit, made it very difficult for Man City to just walk over them. So there's a lot of extenuating circumstances that play into your hand. And it's like a lot of people just ignore that. Nah, you lost to Lyon and they were 8th. You're not a good manager. You're a fraud. Get out of the club. And it's like, oh, okay. I didn't know fraud win 2 Premier League titles back to back. Okay. Anyways, I think that reaches that brings us to the conclusion of that.
One more point. I think people have heard our predictions. Where do you think Man City will finish, Marcus?
Oh man, you're putting me on the spot here, man. You're putting me on the spot here because look, I definitely think they'll make top 4, obviously, duh. But oh man, it's tough. Based on what I've seen at the moment, I'm going to be controversial and say I think they'll finish 3rd. I think Chelsea will get 2nd if they have a good season. Liverpool will still be 1st. As much as I hate that, why are we letting Liverpool be 1st back to back? But anyways, and I think I have to go with United in 4th because I still think my team is good enough to finish top 4. Should we get Jadon Sancho? But Everton, they could put an upset. Leicester could put an upset. Tottenham are looking like a team that's hungry to grow. And yes, they're not playing particularly well at the moment. They're not playing the most attractive football. But when has Jose ever played attractive football? I think Tottenham are ready and highly motivated to play for their manager. They look like a team that's hungry. They've got Reguilon, they've got Bale, they've got Højbjerg, who's looking really good at the moment and scored a penalty for them to get them through the Carabao Cup. So they look like a team that's finally going to win trophies. And then you've got Arsenal, who I think everyone's sleeping on. I genuinely do. I'm not saying Arsenal will make top four, but I think Arsenal have strengthened. And to all the United fans who think that means nothing, if a team buys 3 players this summer, you buy no one. Then they buy 3 players next summer, you buy no one. Then they buy 3 more players the next summer. What do you think is going to happen? And they have a new manager, and they have actually won a trophy, unlike you. What do you think is going to happen? And I think United fans are being extremely arrogant, and so are all the other Premier League fans. Because I tell you what, Arsenal, for a crap team that needs a new bench, probably a whole new reserves team, and probably a whole new first team as well, they've beat Klopp 3 times now. I know one of them was a preseason game, but they have beat Liverpool 3 times now. And they are a force to reckon with. And I don't think they'll finish top 4, but I definitely think they'll be in that 5th place battle or 6th place battle, should things go according to plan. But yeah, I think City will finish third. I think saying they finish second is the obvious thing to go with. But I think the reason why I put them third is because I don't think they'll be as motivated in the Premier League this season. I think they'll try go for the Champions League. I think they'll try go for the other trophies. I don't think they'll improve any more than they did last season in the league. I don't see it. I don't see Nathan Ake being the difference between them and Chelsea. You know what I mean? So I don't know. And this is all if Chelsea has a good season, by the way. I hate to be that guy, but there's a lot of factors that go into predictions.
Yeah.
If Chelsea have a bad season, then nobody's finishing. Nobody's finishing beyond City and Liverpool. End of story.
United, just 4th. Even with Cavani.
No, I think United can get 4th because what people don't realize about United is we have been moaning about needing a centre-back, right, for nearly 3 months now, right? But you know what's funny? Our centre-back had the 3rd highest clean sheets in the league, and it was 40% better than his last season when he got sacked. So our defence has actually improved. Our front 3, which doesn't have a proper right winger, by the way, is one of the top 5 leading goals in Europe amongst the young front 3s. That's pretty bloody impressive. When you add to that, we have one of the best attacking midfielders in the league, hands down. We have Paul Pogba, an ex-World Cup winner. We have Matic, an ex-Premier League winner. And we have Donny van de Beek on the bench. Those players, they fit. I don't care who you are. We're beating you on the day. We've beat every team in the top 6 without Bruno and Paul Pogba. I honestly don't care who you are. Unless you're Liverpool, I ain't afraid of you on the day. It's about whether or not you can keep it up over a season. And based on the evidence last season, Leicester ain't staying consistent. Arsenal ain't staying consistent. We don't have to worry about Spurs, really, because they just play the park the bus football for some reason. Jose is just sticking with the same tactic, even though it hasn't worked for him in 5 years, besides winning a Europa League and a Carabao Cup. So I'm only just looking at Everton and Chelsea and going, those are the teams I'm really, really worried about. And besides the obvious Man City and Liverpool. But we can beat Man City on their day. We have done it. So I don't know. Maybe I'm being too arrogant, but honestly, I'm not that afraid. We are in a shambles at the moment, but I still think we have the quality to win games. You want proof? We beat Brighton 3-2 when we didn't deserve it. We're winning games that we don't deserve to win, even towards the back end of last season. And I tell you what, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer has gone on the best away run since Sir Alex Ferguson. If that means nothing to you, cool. It means a lot to me because, first of all, we played attractive football. We've played football that was effective. We played football that was very attacking and very brave, full of risk where our fullbacks were pushing up. And we still beat teams off the park in the Premier League. I know people will say it was Bournemouth, it was Brighton, it was this, that, and the other, but those aren't easy games. Brighton, as we've seen, isn't an easy game, but we played them off the park last season. We played Bournemouth off the park last season. We played Sheffield United off the park last season. Yeah, they weren't fit, but is that really our problem? I don't see Brighton giving us sympathy for not being fit on the first game, on the second game back. So I think United fans are over-exaggerating. They're looking at 2 games instead of looking at what's happened in the last 20 games. And in the last 20 games, we're still one of the best teams on form. I hate to break it to you, I hate to break it. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer has lost 2 games in the last 20. 2 games. He's lost none away from home. And we're panicking. I just don't get it. But that's just me. I think that about wraps up the show, people. That's a bit of an unpopular opinion sprinkled on at the end there, But football is a result. Yeah, but look, I'm not trying to be Mr. Positive. I'm not trying to be Mr. Ollie N. I'm going off of the results. It's a results game. You can't ignore the results. Like, people overreact over small things, and I get it. I am also scared. But hey, Lindelof and Maguire actually played last season, and we had less goals conceded than Chelsea. Sure, they've strengthened, so they're going to go above us. But what about Arsenal? What about Tottenham? What about Everton? Did they buy new centre-backs? I don't know if Gabriel Magalhaes is the difference between 17 clean sheets and however many clean sheets Arsenal had when they finished 8th. I don't know if he's the guy. If they had signed like a Koulibaly or something, then yeah. But I just don't see it. I just don't see it. This is United's top 4 spot to lose, is basically what I'm saying. And if United get crash out of the top 4, it's their fault only. Plus, if we don't get Jadon Sancho, it's a high possibility, because I don't see our entire front 3 staying fit. But that's just my 2 cents. I think we should wrap up the show there. It's been a good one, and I hope that you have hit that like button, and I do not have to remind you. I hope if you are new, you have subscribed, and I do not have to remind you. And I hope you're doing well, and you will continue to enjoy the rest of your day / evening. But otherwise, it's been your boy Triple M. Peace out.